nuestro webinar de Soluciones de Última Milla, con el apoyo de STC Group, en el marco del MOU existente entre el Ministerio de Transporte y Telecomunicaciones y el Reino de los Países Bajos, el Ministerio de Infraestructura y Agua, el Programa de Desarrollo Logístico y Corfo. Así que muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy. El programa, que está un poquito retrasado, les pedimos disculpas por eso nuevamente, tiene que ver con unas palabras de bienvenida ahora, de lo que vamos a hablar, que básicamente van a ser qué es lo que está pasando hoy día en el mundo, en específico en Países Bajos, con temas de última milla. Y estas presentaciones provenientes de Fleur Mercelis, de Rebel Group. Luego tendremos una sesión de oportunidades de capacitación en logística y transporte de STC International, a cargo de Silvina Pereira y Edson Hoffman, para luego al finalizar tener un espacio de preguntas y palabras finales también por parte del público. Así que por favor, estén muy conectados a su chat. Y para poder hacer traducción simultánea, en este momento las presentaciones que van a ver van a ser en inglés, por lo tanto, quienes estén cómodos con el inglés pueden escuchar en inglés o pueden escoger el idioma que ustedes decidan abajo en el panel de interpretación. Sin más, dejo de compartir mi pantalla y le doy el espacio a Fleur Mercelis. Fleur, the floor is yours. Fleur is director of Rebel Group, Port and Logistics. This is a group of the Netherlands, but most of this project is in Belgium. So we're really eager to hear you about what are doing in last mile solutions and these kind of topics for as an example of us. So Fleur, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Yes, thank you, Carlos. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it. Yeah, we have no problem.
Yeah, I'm not really sure which view you see, but it doesn't matter.
But you know, the presentation is in not a presentation mode. So you can click in, yes. In this.
Is this better?
We're loading. I don't know what happened, but we cannot see it in presentation mode.
It's good like this?
But it's good. Yes, it's no problem. No problem.
Okay, because yeah, for me it's okay now. Yes, so I'm Fleur Mercelis. I'm a director at the Rebel Group Ports and Logistics. We are a consultancy firm. I work at Rebel for 10 years now. And I'm mostly active in logistics, in last mile logistics, and a little bit broader, the sustainable cities. I do a lot of projects in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany, but also some projects abroad, like in Vietnam recently. Maybe 2 slides on Rebel. We are a consultancy firm, a financial economical consultancy group with more or less 250 people, and we are active in the whole world. But if you work on international projects, we always work with local people also. We find it's important to get really a feeling about the local situation. We claim that there is no change without a rebel, which means that we really aim to social impact, and we do a lot of projects on the intersection of the public and the private sector. I work a lot for local governments and help them in policy making. We are active on a lot of in a lot of sectors, like the renewable energy, but my team focuses on logistics. Logistics in the whole supply chain, going from ports to inland waterways, but also city logistics and last mile logistics. And that's why I'm here today. I'm an economist. I do a lot of business cases. I work with governments to work out their policy. And when you talk about logistics and last mile logistics, when you think about possible and good policies, it's really important to do that together with the private sector. And that's why we do a lot, also a lot on public-private partnerships. That's in a nutshell who I am, what my perspective is on last mile logistics. Yeah, I think that's why I'm here. I want to give you a little bit information on city logistics. And maybe before we start in detail, it's good to talk a little bit about what is city logistics, what's in the name. And when we talk about city logistics, we talk about all the goods, all the flows of goods there are in a city center, and it's about the delivery of the stores, the supply of companies, bars, restaurants, hotels. It's about construction materials. It's about waste. It's about services, the plumber at your place, the internet connection, the Coca-Cola machines, and things like that. So it's about a lot of type of goods, and they all have their own characteristics. So they all have their own logistic requirements, and they all different with all different stakeholders. And that says already something about the complexity of city logistics. Maybe also interesting for you to know is that these are numbers of European context. I don't have them for Chile, it's a pity, but in Europe it's really the construction sector which is really present in urban context. And of course also the supply of stores, the supply of bars and things like that. So that's really important. What we see is that when it comes to e-commerce, they're really visible in the city streets, but they're when you look at the vehicle kilometers, they're quite limited in perspective to the other flows of goods. Maybe one slide about numbers. Also, when we talk about city logistics, like we said before, it's different flows, and it's also a different kind of transport modes. And it's really important also because when it comes to the impact of city logistics on the viability of a city, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But then you see it's about vans, the blue color, and more big trucks, the orange color. And then you see that the trucks are really present in the general cargo parts. And when it comes to the construction, in the broad way of talking about construction, it's a lot of plumbers and things like that, and it's a lot of more smaller vans. That's important to know when you want to improve city logistics, to know how it is today. Maybe the next slide. It is why, yeah.
So, sorry, but I think that we have a problem with your presentation because not in the next slide we are in the first slide, I think.
Okay. Oh, I've been already a little bit further. Yeah, I think I have to do it like this. You see now the numbers of
Yes, your yeah. Graph, yes.
Okay.
Number 11. The
okay,
11,
we missed
11.
some parts. Yeah, I think I can go to the next slide where I was.
Yes, no
so maybe the importance of
yes, and we're not sorry, but we're not in presentation mode, I think.
Well, no, because I was in presentation mode, but then you don't see the presentation, so that's not really
good. Okay, no problem.
But maybe like this, it's okay. I made it a little bit smaller, and I think I'm
but yes.
Then you maybe see the most of it.
If not, it's okay. Thank you. Great.
Okay, oh, I'm going to do it like this. Yeah, so why is it important, the city logistics? And also you see in the Netherlands and in Belgium and in other European cities, it's getting more and more important. I also got a question from Colombia to give more information about the topic. So I think also for you, it's getting more and more important. And why is that? Because the impact on the livability in the city is quite huge, and this is a graph about the impact on road safety of trucks in city centers, and there you see that the impact is quite large, so that there is a lot of accidents with trucks, and also that the accidents which are happening, that they are also quite heavy. And it's quite with a bad end after the accident. So that's why it's getting more and more attention now in our place. And also when it comes to climate change, it has an important impact. And also the air quality in the city is really depending on the city logistics or the last mile logistics. And there we see, for example, in this graph, again, it's numbers from Europe, but I think it's the same there, that when you can see at the number of vehicles in urban context, there's a lot of passenger cars, much more than there are vehicles for the transportation of goods. However, the impact on emissions, or the emissions of the transportation of goods, is really more present than the emissions than from a passenger's car. When it's come to carbon dioxide, it's more or less the same. But when it comes to fine parts or nitrogen, it's the impact of city logistics is much worse, and that's why we see that there is more attention for the optimization of city logistics now in European context. And so we see that we need a policy. We need also governments and enterprises to think about good solutions. But it's quite difficult also for local governments to do things about it. Why is it? Because, like I already mentioned, it's a really diversity of a difficult type of transport goods. So it's complex, and also a lot of stakeholders are involved. We also see that there is not a lot of knowledge. It's getting better and better, but there's not a lot of knowledge and experience with local governments, and also with the local enterprises. They're not really experienced in good last mile solutions which are efficient, cost effective, but also sustainable. We also see that there's not a lot of information about what we talk about. I showed you some numbers, but they are general numbers. And when we talk with local governments, they don't really know what type of goods, what kind of flows, and what the impact is of those flows in their city. And what we also see is why it's because there is a lot of it's really complex, and it's about a lot of type of flows. We need a lot of policy domains, a lot of departments who has to work together. And there is sometimes also the question, who is responsible for the optimization of city logistics? So it's not easy, it's complex, but we see that there's a lot of animal now to change things. And so there is a lot of European policy, European subsidies for improvement in the last mile logistics. There are a lot of Belgian initiatives. There is a lot of Dutch initiatives from the government, but also from companies, from logistic companies, to improve those and to make more sustainable these last mile logistics. And that's also what I do. I work with local governments in policy making. I learn or I help them in getting or in launching public-private partnerships when it comes to last mile logistics. Like I said before, it's really important that you have an efficient logistics system for the stores in your and the companies in your city, and also for the civilians, for the visitors. It's really important you have a good logistics system. So it's really important to do it in cooperation with other stakeholders. So that's why public-private partnerships are important. And what we also do is getting tools to get more insights in those city logistics. And we look at the business case, which is also important, that it's not only a sustainable story and a sustainable concept, but also an economically viable concept. I'm going to jump to some snapshots of projects we've done. Maybe it can also inspire you a little bit. 3 examples. One example is Smart Ways to Antwerp. It's a project where we help the local governments to work together with private companies to get new innovative last mile solutions. We did it in Antwerp, but in fact we also did it in Rotterdam. So it's really, we copied the idea from Rotterdam to Antwerp. And in Antwerp, the challenge was that there were a lot of infrastructural works, and we needed to get 10,000 vehicles out of peak hours. It's I can assure you, it's quite a challenge here in Antwerp. So that was the challenge, and what we did was that we launched the marketplace of logistics solutions, also mobility solutions, but also logistics solutions. And we encouraged companies to get new last mile solutions. And we also brought them in contact with possible clients so that they could meet each other and they could go for sustainable logistic last mile solutions. And here we see some of the examples that came out of that assignment. A lot of cargo solutions, some new technical solutions, or just new business models. Also, the waterway was used. Before it was never used in Antwerp, and now they also use the waterway to organize construction materials and to transport construction materials, concrete, but also pallets. Another solution was the package wall for e-commerce, and Cult is a solution which is really based on cooperation between different senders and different receivers from urban flows, and they were working together to find a good logistic partner which could help them with an efficient and sustainable solution. Another project we did is something we did for in the European project. So it was not only for one city, but for different cities. And there we made a map, or we mapped the different flows of goods, and we find a methodology to get more insight in the flows of transportation today, but also where the problems were. So here you see a map of Antwerp, where you see the problem zones when it comes to city last mile logistics. One final example, I already talked about it, that more and more we get questions about the use of the waterway in last mile solutions. So the bike is getting more and more popular, but nowadays also the waterway is getting more and more used. We also did a project in Ho Chi Minh City, where we really look at the best practices of all over the world, in Europe, but also in Asia and things like that. And we looked at the good best practices, and then together with a local partner, we looked at the possibilities for Ho Chi Minh City. So that was in a nutshell last mile logistics, and also a little bit where we think that you can find solutions and improvements when it comes to sustainability, but also efficiency.
Great, Fleur. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's really interesting, all the examples related to last mile solutions and what you can do, what we can do in Chile. So thanks again for being here with us. Ahora vamos a pasar a la presentación de STC Group con Silvina Pereira y Adson Hoffman. Adson, te agradecemos mucho el estar acá a estas horas, está en Bangladesh ahora, así que de verdad agradecemos mucho el apoyo, y también les recuerdo que al final de este webinar vamos a hacer el concurso de una beca cortesía de STC Group al 100% para un curso de Last Mile también, Delivery Management. So Silvina and Adson, thank you very much for being here with us, and the floor is yours, please. Estás muteada, Silvina.
Lo advierto. Muchas gracias, Carlos.
Gracias, Silvina.
Comienzo brevemente yo, 5 minutitos, para luego darle la palabra a Adson, que es lo más interesante. ¿Me permiten compartir la pantalla? ¿Puedo poner la presentación?
Sí, ningún problema. Puedes compartir pantalla.
Tengo que elegir también Share Sound, ¿no? Ahí está, ok. Entonces, a ver si la pueden ver. Lo que necesito es ponerla en que
¿La
me
vemos?
pase las...
En modo presentación.
¿Sí, la ven?
No la podemos ver en modo presentación, estamos viendo la pantalla en
Sí,
PowerPoint.
estoy tratando de que me acepte.
Ahí.
Ahora sí, ¿no?
No, aún no. Si lo colocas abajo, tal vez, en modo
Yo
presentación,
la
no sé
veo
si lo estás viendo.
en modo
En modo
presentación.
presentación.
Sí.
No, nosotros estamos viendo tu PowerPoint, como veíamos el de Fleur.
A ver, voy a ponerlo otra vez.
Uh-huh.
A ver, un segundo. Vamos a poner desde ahora en modo de presentación y a ver si puedo ahora. Share with sound.
Ahí la vemos bien.
Ahora sí, perfecto.
Sí, a ver si puedes pasar una diapositiva.
Sí.
Sí, ahí estamos perfecto.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Carlos. Bueno, un gusto saludarlos a todos los participantes que están conectados y por supuesto a Carlos, a ustedes y a Fleur y a Adson. Mi nombre es Silvina Pereira Márquez, yo soy Area Manager para Latinoamérica de STC International. STC International es el brazo comercial internacional de lo que es el grupo STC. El grupo STC es una gran escuela aquí en los Países Bajos, con una característica, podríamos asemejarla a cuando los niños comienzan a los 12 años en una escuela secundaria, y en teoría pueden salir con una maestría en navegación y transporte, y esta escuela tiene una particularidad que es totalmente dedicada a los sectores marítimos del transporte y la logística. Como brazo comercial internacional de esa escuela, ¿qué es lo que hacemos nosotros desde STC International? Educación, entrenamientos, asistencia técnica e investigación para un núcleo de sectores que los tenemos identificados en 4 clústeres, cuáles son el clúster marítimo y de industrias vinculadas, todo lo que es puertos y terminales, lo que es transporte y logística, y lo que es la industria del proceso y energética. Y hoy por hoy estamos incorporando también un quinto circulito, el cual es innovación, en los cuales tocamos todos los temas hoy por hoy de digitalización, de automatización y de energías renovables. Ahora, brevemente, como ustedes no pueden estar aquí conmigo, quiero compartirles un breve video de STC Group en su totalidad. Este video está en holandés, pero está subtitulado y espero que funcione el sonido. Si no funciona, me avisa.
Nederland is het maritieme centrum van Europa en bezit een van de sterkste maritieme clusters van de wereld.
No?
De 12 sectoren zijn samen goed voor ruim 12.000 bedrijven en 200.000 banen. Door onze unieke ligging, toonaangevende samenwerkende bedrijven en toenemend clusterdenken is het cluster een belangrijke speel in onze economie. De positie van de Nederlandse maritieme sector is zeer sterk. Dit komt mede dankzij de grote havencapaciteit en de omvangrijke vloot voor transport en dienstverlening. De maritieme sector neemt wereldwijd een toonaangevende positie in op het gebied van offshore dienstverleningen en levering van complexe systemen. Om deze sterke positie van de Nederlandse maritieme sector te behouden, zijn opleidingen en cursussen heel belangrijk. De STC Group is een van deze onderwijs- en kennisinstellingen voor scheepvaart, transport en havenindustrie. Naast verschillende praktijkgerichte VMBO, MBO en HBO-opleidingen verzorgen zij ook masteropleidingen, trainingen en cursussen voor de maritieme sector. De STC Group beschikt over verschillende praktijkfaciliteiten. In deze sector is het belangrijk dat de praktijk van alle dag nauwkeurig wordt nagebootst om zo het leerproces te versnellen. Met behulp van simulatoren en trainingscentra wordt een interactieve en veilige opleidingsomgeving gecreëerd. Een voorbeeld van zo'n trainingcenter kunnen we vinden in Rotterdam. Een speciaal geprepareerd oefencentrum helpt medewerkers van stevedores, opslag- en distributiebedrijven om praktische kennis en vaardigheden op te doen. Faciliteiten als een oefenschip, een magazijn, containers en zware vorkheftrucks zijn hier aanwezig. Veiligheid binnen deze sector is van levensbelang. Daarom is het ook belangrijk om diverse veiligheidssituaties te beheersen en deze situatie ook regelmatig in een praktijkgerichte cursus te ervaren. Voor meer informatie over de maritieme sector, kijk dan eens even op onze website www.ondernemendnederland.tv.
Muy bien, entonces, muy brevemente mostrarle algunas de nuestras instalaciones en los Países Bajos. Simplemente quiero mostrarles algunos de nuestros simuladores, como ven en la pantalla, simuladores de puente, de barco, obviamente, simuladores de equipos portuarios, el simulador de cadena del transporte, laboratorios de procesos con los que contamos aquí en diversas de nuestras instalaciones, talleres y una sala de máquinas en simulador y también real, solo que en un edificio, barcos escuela, y esto es un poquito en muy grandes líneas lo que tenemos en los Países Bajos, pero también contarles acerca de nuestra presencia en diversos países del mundo. Todos los lugares marcados en azul es donde estamos establecidos. Colombia, en el caso de Latinoamérica, en los Países Bajos, por supuesto, Sudáfrica, Vietnam, en Indonesia. Y en todos los lugares marcados en verde es donde realizamos actividades permanentemente. Les voy a mostrar un nuevo videíto que me pareció muy atinado a esta reunión, porque aquí nos encontramos representantes del sector privado, en el caso de Fleur, representantes del sector público en Chile, el gobierno, Conecta Logística, representantes de la institución educativa, como lo somos nosotros en el caso de STC International, y en este videíto les muestro brevemente un ejemplo de colaboración en lo que es la industria, el gobierno, y la institución educativa en los Países Bajos. También se encuentra subtitulado.
Mijn naam is Albert Bos, ik ben directeur van STC TNC, Training Consultancy.
Ik ben René Rotmans en ik werk bij het havenbedrijf Rotterdam. Daar doe ik alles op het gebied van arbeidsmarkt en onderwijs in het havenindustriecomplex in Rotterdam. Digitalisering heeft enorme impact op de haven en werk in de haven. Als we kijken naar digitalisering, dan is het heel belangrijk om om- en bijscholingsmogelijkheden beschikbaar te stellen voor het personeel dat momenteel in de haven werkt, maar ook voor scholieren en studenten die willen werken.
De toekomst verandert snel, techniek verandert snel. Dat betekent ook dat de banen snel veranderen. En daar moeten we op inspelen. Dus gaan wij hier niet bijvoorbeeld een fully automated terminal neerzetten, dan doet Antwerpen het wel. Dus dat betekent ook dat we andere beroepen daarvoor moeten creëren. En als STC daarin mee moeten gaan.
We kunnen denken aan zelfsturende schepen, maar ook slimme sensoren en kademuren. En mensen weten dat momenteel niet zo goed. Dus veel opleidingen die leiden nog op voor operator, voor engineer. Die nog heel erg ook wel dat praktische aspect van de haven in de opleiding hebben. Waar de IT-aspecten vaak nog missen. En daarvoor is de IT-campus zo belangrijk.
Ja, ondanks wij in Rotterdam afgesproken hebben wie welke beroepsgroep onder zijn hoede neemt, qua opleidingen dan, is het toch belangrijk dat we samenwerken. En samenwerken bijvoorbeeld met de IT-campus is van heel groot belang. Want vaak de techniek die wij dan op dat moment niet hebben, heeft de IT-campus wel. En dat kun je samenvoegen en samen weer verder gaan en van te kunnen leren om wel klaar te zijn voor de toekomst, voor de nieuwe banen die nodig zijn in de haven.
Daarnaast vinden we het als havenbedrijf Rotterdam belangrijk dat huidige medewerkers, zo ook mensen die momenteel geen werk hebben, maar via omscholing en bijscholingstrajecten willen werken aan de digitale haven van de toekomst.
We kijken inderdaad dus niet alleen naar jongeren, maar we kijken ook naar de mensen die in de huidige arbeidsmarkt actief zijn. Het zijn mensen die zich graag om willen scholen. Nou, dan kunnen wij een assessment maken en wat die persoon dan nodig heeft om bijvoorbeeld in de haven een baan te vinden.
In de haven zijn we altijd op zoek naar talentvolle en enthousiaste medewerkers. Wij zorgen er daarom voor dat iedereen welkom is om te werken in deze en de toekomstige haven van Rotterdam.
meer weten over het om- of bijscholen van personeel op digitaal gebied? Of wil je meer weten over meer en beter IT-talent voor jouw organisatie? Neem contact met ons op of kijk op nextmaritimeprofessional.nl.
Bueno, y entonces finalmente para finalizar, deseo, antes de darle la palabra, bueno, nuevamente a Carlos y luego a Adson, invitarlos a que vean en nuestra página web de STC International todos los programas que tenemos online en este momento disponibles. En el día en materia de transporte y logística, en el día de hoy Adson se va a concentrar y nos va a contar acerca de el curso de Last Mile Management, Last Mile Delivery Management. Estoy pensando cómo se dice en español, pero no me lo puedo recordar. Así que él les va a explicar más al respecto. Como decía Carlos, vamos a ofrecer una beca para este curso. No obstante, esperamos tener muchas más personas interesadas en participar en el mismo. Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias, Silvina, por tu presentación. Ahora, en honor del tiempo, dejo con ustedes a Adson Hoffman. Adson es parte del equipo de Silvina y también experto en el tema de Last Mile Delivery. So, Adson, thank you very much for staying here with us, and the floor is yours. And gracias, Silvina. Adson.
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Let me share the PowerPoint that I prepared. You should see it now in full presentation mode.
Yes, we see this.
So first of all, good morning, everyone. My name is Adson Hoffman, working for STC International, similar as Silvina. Within STC International, I'm the area manager for Southeast Asia, of a different region. I'm also there right now, actually. For me, it's already evening. I'm currently in Bangladesh, actually. But I'm more than happy, actually, to present a short presentation, actually, about the topic of last mile delivery management. Quite an important topic, as also Fleur already highlighted in the first presentation, and also something that's becoming increasingly important, especially regarding the logistics in the cities. Shortly about myself, background in business administration and supply chain management. Posted in Rotterdam, and now already working for about 10 years for STC International, first as project manager, and later on going responsible for the region of Southeast Asia. What I actually would like to do during this particular session is focus a little bit what do you understand as last mile delivery management, so that everyone is on the same.
Adson?
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupt you, but I think we have a problem with the volume. I think you need to turn down a bit the volume because it's coupling.
Okay. Check. Is the volume better now, or?
Yes, it's better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give this a try. So first, I would like to discuss a little bit about new scoping, last mile delivery management topic. Also some examples of how it can actually work in practice. For example, urban consolidation centers, transport guidance, but also looking for more environmental friendly transportation. Really make that last mile delivery much more sustainable as well, and also different logistic profiles that can be applicable in different circumstances, in different situations, because we quite often see with regard to last mile delivery management, there's not like a one size fits all. It really depends on the situation, and depending on the situation, different policies or developments can be implemented actually to come up with a good solution for the last mile delivery. So if you look a little bit at a basic picture of a supply chain, and then we take a little bit the example from the port, basically towards the internet. What we actually see over there is that, of course, the closer you get to your final point of destination, the more individual the final transportation actually gets. So you have first the port, you have like inland terminals, you have some warehouses / distribution centers, then the final delivery actually to the retailer or the consumer, online or whether that is offline. That last part, so actually the transportation from your warehouse, where you see anything like that, to the final point of destination, whether it is a retailer, for example, like a shop, or it is an individual consumer, is what we consider as the last mile delivery management. So yeah, basically like the word already says, the actual delivery in the last part of that supply chain. And that's actually quite an important topic. When we look also at that specific point of last mile delivery management. So again, it's basically any movement of freight, being, for example, like a distribution hub and the final delivery destination. It can be retail stores, can be restaurants, can be rural homes, apartments, pickup stations, and all different possibilities. The nice thing is also that it includes both business to business markets and at the same time also business to consumer markets as well. That really is on that spectrum. And it's quite interesting to realize over here as well is that it focuses both on regular logistics, but also focuses on reverse logistics as well. So for example, a certain product is not sold, or someone doesn't like a certain product. How do we get it back to the DC? How do we get it back to the warehouse? That's also what the last mile delivery is also focusing on. How do we get all those individual deliveries back? And last mile delivery management is quite important actually to consider. And you also see that more and more attention actually also paid to this particular topic. Also due to the increase of the e-commerce sector as well, it causes even more individual deliveries to relatively busy places. Total cost in this particular last part of the transportation flow are relatively high, also when you compare to the other parts of the supply chain. It's quite significant part actually within the transport logistics system, which creates quite a lot of employment. I think for the individual delivery guys, the distribution that needs to take place, the management of it, you name it. And it's also quite fundamental actually to ensure that the stuff that you buy in the shops remains accessible in the shops, that it remains available in the shops, and you can actually buy it whenever you want. That actually contributes quite significantly to basically sustaining our existing milestones. And at the same time, the focus is quite a lot on reducing the negative environmental effects of urban transportation. Also, Fleur highlighted quite a lot in your presentation as well. So how can we reduce the environmental impact, still at the same time actually get the product to the final point of destination, especially in very crowded places. Because transportation in urban areas is quite complex. And there are various reasons. I highlight a couple of them. Very important one is that there are different economic structures. People are living there, people are working there, people go there for recreational activities. And cities also designed in a certain way. I mean, if you look at, for example, like industrial complex, it's really designed for import and export out of that industrial complex. The city not. The city is really designed for a place to live, to recreate, and to work. So quite often there are also quite a lot of limitations in city design. At the same time, also a lot of different factors are involved, combined with different transportation systems, varying in the amount, also varying in the priority of the traffic. That's also a little bit highlighted on the two pics I actually show below. I mean, the left one shows a lot of shops, a lot of different modes of transportation. So how do you actually deliver the shops over there? You can imagine you cannot go very easily in there with like a very big truck filled with goods. I mean, it's relatively difficult. So the more restrictions are actually also in place, the more innovative also the solutions quite often needs to be. Actually make those city centers as accessible as possible, both for individual deliveries and at the same time also deliveries at different retail shops and restaurants. And a very nice solution quite often considered is, for example, like consultation, located on the outskirts of the city center or urban area. And the goal actually of this consolidation center is really to limit the amount of transportation of individual deliveries to those final points of destinations, whether it is someone's home, someone's apartment, or whether that is like a regular retail store. It's also a little bit highlighted over here. Yes, you have additional handling costs, same time, it significantly reduces the amount of transportation. And because it is located so closely to the final point of destinations, it also makes it possible that also other much more environmental friendly modes of transportation can actually be used for the final last mile delivery. Because those urban consolidations have several sustainability impacts. Sustainability, they're really focusing on economic, social, and the environmental impact of those urban consolidation centers. It reduces the number of vehicles, it can reduce the amount of vehicles that actually needed for the transportation, the amount of movement, can reduce the cost. A lot more opportunities actually for more environmental sensitive vehicles to really reduce that the negative environmental effects regarding CO2 emissions, the NOx and particle matters. And at the same time also making the area much more pedestrian friendly. Very nice example again of such an urban consolidation center is located, for example, in the city. What happens, for example, in the Netherlands, called actually City Hub, is that actually the stores rent like flexible store space, and their stores are actually provided from that one single area. Green transportation takes place, so no negative environmental impacts is possible. It's also possible to make combinations of transportation because several stores, shops are involved. This, for example, method is introduced, for example, in Utrecht, The Hague, and in Amsterdam. Also, city centers that are characterized with narrow streets, where a lot of limitations are in the city designed to facilitate a proper and a good transportation method regarding those last mile deliveries. But at the same time, cities also try to actually undertake different type of measures actually to one end keep polluting big vehicles outside of city centers. There are actually various examples all over the world. For example, you have the low emission zones, for example, taking place in London, that certain type of vehicles are not allowed to enter city centers to really keep those highly environmental impacted vehicles outside of those city centers. Having barriers to make certain areas really pedestrian friendly, also quite remains accessible. At the same time, also, there are some time regulations. For example, that no loading is allowed during the daytime, so the shops are open to really keep that areas accessible. And some cities even opt for an option where they only give like night deliveries. Make sure that all the stores are provided with the goods during the night, having it stored to actually keep the city accessible for the rest of the day. Of course, there's several pros and cons on that, but there are different solutions or opportunities that city centers are trying to have a look at. So some examples are, let's take for example like those cargo bikes. DHL is using them, TT, some other kind of companies as well, making use of this urban consolidation center, put the packages in there and actually deliver it to the different locations. But at the same time, I mean, both of these examples actually come from Paris and France. Is, for example, also making use of barge transportation. It can be used one at the storage. At the same time, it can also be used for part of the transportation. And the last of the last miles, so to say, can actually then be done by small vans, or it can be done again by those small cargo bikes. So quite innovative solutions, which companies are really trying to look into to really facilitating the last mile transportation. What's important over here to have a look at as well is basically the different logistic profiles that actually play a role. Like I highlighted in the beginning of the presentation, is that it's not like a one size fits all. It really depends on the local circumstance, the local situation, what the main challenges and also the main solutions are regarding a proper solution for undertaking the last mile delivery management. Very important one are the agent needs, so in other words, the needs of the stakeholders. How frequent do we need to have the deliveries? How urgent is it? What are the amounts? Can we plan those deliveries? So that's quite important elements for the agents. Same time, you also have to take into account the area features. Very modern cities, very wide streets, is completely different than some of the older cities that much more narrower streets. And also location of different shops or stores plays quite an important role over there as well. Also commercial density, are it all the same shops? Are there use variety in shops? How accessible are those areas? Are there any restrictions that we need to take into consideration? And then finally, of course, you have the product characteristics itself. Is any special conditions applicable? Are there perishable goods? Are there electronics that need to be handled with care? All different components actually play quite an important role in the definition of so-called logistic profiles. To link that actually a little bit, I've made, like I said, let's say four examples of how we can define those different logistic profiles, also depending on different situations, different circumstances. So we actually give you two options. One is actually, well, I took the picture actually in Vietnam. Actually an area which is highlighted by a lot of similar shops that also sell the same product, but also an area which is quite difficultly accessible due to its location right in the city center. So what we see, for example, there is that the commercial density is relatively high. Mobility as well, because both the same type of products are being sold. The logistic accessibility can be reasonable or can be bad. Actually, again, also depending again regarding the characteristics, regarding the profiles of the agents, so the different stakeholders, really a different plan of approach can actually be defined on how to make those last mile deliveries. On the other hand, on the right-hand side, it's a completely different situation. Actually, like a residential area, also local trade, local shops are located. Here, the commercial density and homogeneity is much lower. But at the same time, the other components actually last mile delivery is related to the product, or whether it's related to the needs of the agents, very differently. Therefore, also different delivery methods can actually also be implemented. And you have the final ones. Left on the, for example, like Singapore, like a very strong business center, for example. Also, those areas need to be supplied, even though, of course, the main services that are provided are service related. What we see over there is that one hand, commercial density is relatively high, logistic accessibility is poor, but at the same time, there need to be a lot of deliveries taking place. A lot of those companies are located on a relatively small area, so that also makes it possible for environmentally friendly modes of doing it actually the last mile delivery. At the same time, it's like, for example, the last one on the right-hand side is, for example, like a large shopping mall. Commercial density, of course, absolutely high. A lot of different types of goods, and the thing is that area is completely designed for people going in and out, but at the same time also cargo going in and out. So logistic accessibility is much better over there. So it's also quite easy to achieve more economies of scale. For example, in your last mile deliveries, quite often also not really restrictions applicable. So, for example, in such an area, a final delivery can be much easier. Although, of course, also there some challenges could be applied as well. And that actually summarizes a bit, at least to give a little bit of a peek preview of last mile delivery management. Also a little bit was related to one of the courses Sabina highlighted. And the main conclusion actually that we can say from this is that cities are quite complex logistic systems. Really, innovative logistic solutions are needed. One hand to keep those cities accessible, but at the same time, really to mitigate the negative effects of last mile deliveries, whether that's related to congestion or whether that's related to the environmental impact. Again, there's not like a one size fits all. It really depends on the circumstances, and depending on circumstances, the solution can be applicable. Sustainable last mile deliveries are really the future. Sustainable focusing on the environmental part, the same time also the social part, and also the economic part as well, equally important to take into consideration. And finally, also the policy strategy development. Policies in place within certain city centers, develop a strategy on that, really keep those cities on it accessible, and they were also at the same time nice places for people to live and also to recreate. That was it from my side. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, if you have any questions, looking forward to answer any of them. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Hudson. Thank you very much for our presentation. Really interesting that the different applications and in which ways you can use these last mile solutions. Now we have, I'm sorry for this, pero tenemos algunos minutos, 8 minutos por el atraso que tuvimos para algunas preguntas que han dejado en el chat. Les voy a transmitir la primera pregunta que llegó, que dice, y ahí tal vez podría contestar la Fleur y Hudson, sobre what have been the main challenges of night distribution. I don't know if you have experienced Fleur and Hudson on this. Hudson,
yeah, so let me see the question also in the chat. The thing about night deliveries is that it really depends a bit on the location. So for example, if you have a certain area where shop is located and a lot of people are living above that shop, and you start to do night deliveries, of course those people will not really get a lot of sleep. So that's a bit the issue over there. I mean, when that's not the case, it can be a very suitable solution because, well, there's less traffic in the cities, for example, making that a very suitable solution. But in case there are a lot of people living around those areas, night deliveries are not really suitable. So it always really has to be taken into consideration. So that's a challenge with night deliveries.
Thank you very much, Hudson. Fleur, we have some comments.
No, yeah, I can only say the same thing. So it's really the noise that can be quite hard, and it's also one thing we see more and more that's a big issue in city centers. That is the problems of noise, and there are a lot of projects to reduce noise. So then it's they're quite sensitive on night deliveries.
Okay, thank you very much, Fleur. And the second and last question says, in general, the sustainable last mile implies smaller vehicles. Doesn't that generate more congestion problems with other vehicles? No, I don't know what's or you want to answer the question.
Yeah, I can maybe answer. Maybe Edson can also add something later on. But okay. I think yes. So it's not always like that. It's more sustainable. So that the smaller vehicles are more sustainable. So you're right on that. So, yes, it's when you have smaller vehicles, it can also be bikes, for example. So in that case, the impact on congestion, for example, is a little bit less. So that's one thing. And also it depends a little bit on what you say is sustainable. We also see that when it comes to emissions and air quality, that's more important than in some places, like Edson said, like than road safety, it's less an issue there. And then also, even if there are more vehicles, it can have a positive impact on the emission and air quality. So then it's more sustainable. But I really find it very interesting what Edson had to say about the different logic profiles there are in different cities, because then the definition of sustainable will be different in all of these areas. And that's really interesting to see. And maybe sometimes it's more interesting to have smaller vehicles, or maybe bikes and things like that. But there are really also other cases where it's not the most sustainable solution to have a lot of vans. And that's also something that's really, that's good to think about.
Great, Hudson.
Yeah, to add a little bit on that, I fully agree. A lot of those smaller vehicles make use of the bicycle tracks, for example. It's a very popular way of getting around in the Netherlands. So you're actually getting those vehicles off the road. The thing is also, and that also has to do with city design in general. I mean, the more cities are designed in a way that facilitate different modes of transportation, not only designed for a car, but also designed for public transportation network, for pedestrians, for bikes. It also gives a lot of different other options available as well. Actually get around, which also have a positive effect on the congestion. In regards to sustainability, quite often sustainability is referred to the environmental. Also focuses on the social part and economic part. Social, okay, what is, for example, like noise level? Is it safe to get around? All these factors also start to play an increasing role, actually within cities, also to make nice areas to actually live. Those are also all factors that play a role. So, and again, this is not really like a one-size-fits-all. Certain locations, the smaller vehicles are not really very useful, but some other locations, those smaller vehicles are very useful. Again, depending a bit on the situation. So, no, it does not generate more congestion issues.
Great. Well, estamos en el tiempo, así que agradezco muchísimo a Fleur, Silvina y Adson por haber estado aquí hoy. Tuvimos una convocatoria interesante. Por último, vamos a hacer el concurso de la beca de STC de Last Mile Delivery Management. Estuvimos buscando ahí quienes se quedaron hasta el final, así que muchas gracias. Y el ganador de la beca ahí fueron 2 personas que no estaban lamentablemente hasta el final, pero hoy día tenemos como ganadora Gonzalo Naves de grupocentral.io. No sé si estás allí, Gonzalo. Por lo menos vi que estabas conectado. Si puedes decir por el chat yo, si no vamos a tener que buscar a otra persona, pero lo estoy viendo aquí conectado. No sé si nos ve Gonzalo Naves. Si no, te contactamos de todas maneras por interno porque estabas aquí. Sin más, le agradezco nuevamente muchísimo Fleur, Adson y Silvina por el día de hoy. Son temas que para nosotros son bien interesantes en Chile y estamos relevando bastante ahora a distintos niveles. Por lo tanto, el apoyo de Países Bajos, este knowledge que también proviene de Países Bajos es súper interesante. Nuevamente agradecer a la Embajada de Países Bajos en Chile por la coordinación ahí con Fleur, en el marco de este MOU que tenemos con Países Bajos y también el aporte de STC, mostrándonos qué es lo que hay a nivel internacional en capacitación y curso. De todas maneras, ahora vamos a dejar una encuesta de satisfacción y de cualquier manera le vamos a mandar un correo de seguimiento para que cualquier consulta se la puedan hacer llegar a Silvina o al equipo STC o a nosotros como Conecta Logística. Sin más, muchísimas gracias a todos. Que tengan una muy buena jornada. Muchas gracias en especial a Fleur y Adson por los cambios horarios y estamos conversando. Que estén muy bien. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Carlos. Buenos días, buenas noches, buenas tardes para los distintos lugares.
Chao, chao.
Gracias. Chao.